Back, and we're continuing a really important conversation about the military threat that is emerging from the Chinese Communist Party with one of our great experts on the subject, Richard Fisher. Rick, you were describing several new capabilities. You've been following a lot of Chinese developments over the years, again, arguably more closely than anybody else I've come across. Were these air and ship launched ballistic missiles surprises to you, or have you seen them coming? And either way, um, I wanted to get into with you, what we need to be doing to deter their use against us. But first, are they a surprise?
Not precisely, Frank. I mean, in the scope of these developments happening in the last decade, when the United States has no counterparts, no equivalent capabilities, that is disturbing. But Chinese sources have been warning about these two missiles for most of the last 5 years. We got the first inclination of the ship-launched anti-ship ballistic missile in 2017 from a leaked university lecture from a Chinese admiral. The
Mhm.
air-launched ballistic missile has also been previewed by informal Chinese sources as well since at least 2016, 2017. But now we see them. Now they're real.
Yeah.
And this is
Well,
just bad news.
it and it raises the question: if we did have this punch telegraphed, if I can use that expression, why haven't we done more to counter such capabilities? So, give us a sense, if you could, as to uh, not just how we in the United States look at this issue of the adequacy of our deterrence to China, but what do you think is the Chinese calculation at this point? Are they increasingly confident that they could use such capabilities, especially nuclear armed capabilities, should they choose to, with impunity?
Frank, we have to remember that for millennia, Chinese strategic culture has prized deception and surprise.
Mhm.
Uh, just fake the enemy out, hit him when he least expects it, but hit him hard so that he goes down. Now, the Chinese have been deterred by the United States, I would say, until the last 3 or 4 years. I mean, uh, here's why the Chinese have spent the last 30 years developing a range of conventional weapon systems and nuclear armed weapon systems. They stressed the production of the conventional weapons so that uh, we would not overreact to their arming with nuclear weapons. But in the last 2 years, they've thrown that gauntlet down as well. The Chinese are now racing to achieve nuclear superiority over the United States. They may have the ability to deploy up to 4,000 warheads before the end of this decade. Should that happen, China will not be deterred from using, especially its non nuclear systems, to uh, force the United States into retreats that add up over time to pose fundamental and existential threats to our freedoms. Uh, they
Not
want,
least, presumably, by peeling off our allies, either through defeats of them or through separate pieces that they might strike out of a lack of confidence in us. But let me ask you, Rick, again, because you've studied this so closely. Is it that we have deterred them, or is it mostly that they just haven't been ready? These capabilities haven't been fully in place. Uh, Unrestricted warfare of the various other kinds that I mentioned earlier has certainly been going on apace, including, I would argue, biological warfare attack against the United States. So it seems to me as though it's not exactly deterrence that has operated to this point, but now that these capabilities are being put into place, will we be able to deter them going forward? And if so, how?
well, Frank, we have largely deterred major conventional and nuclear attacks, but you're absolutely right. The other forms of unrestricted warfare have been going on for decades, really.
Mm.
Uh, but what will force us to draft our young men and women and send them into combat to fight the Chinese. Well, if they invaded Taiwan, if they started to invade the Ryukyu Island chain, that might do it. But we have the power, we have the options to prevent that, but we're not taking those options. When the administration decided recently not to build a tactical nuclear armed sea launched cruise missile, that, in my opinion, was an invitation to the Chinese to accelerate their plans to invade Taiwan.
Right.
We should have deployed that cruise missile a long time ago. If we
Yeah.
had, then the Chinese would have that much more to think about. They would be the ones to be deterred versus now the United States may be deterred, or this is
Mhm.
what the Chinese want. They want to deter the United States from coming to the aid of our allies because they want us to know that we will lose that conflict, that we
Yeah.
could also be overwhelmed by tactical nuclear weapons as well as conventional weapons.
Yeah. Rick, we have less than a minute. Let me just ask you very quickly, is there reason to believe, as a defense minister back in the early 2000s of China, Chi Hao-chen, signaled that all this talk about Taiwan is a distraction, that the real threat they see is from us, and that the real attack will be vectored towards us?
Taking Taiwan is the first step towards the Chinese Communist Party achieving global hegemony, including over the United States. But
Hmm.
it's very, very important for the Chinese Communist Party.
We'll be watching very closely whether, in fact, that goes ahead as planned. It certainly is their intent, and their capabilities to do it, again, perhaps with impunity, is growing by the day. Rick Fisher, thank you very much for monitoring all of that, of course, and keeping us apprised. We look forward to talking with you again about all this very soon. Thanks to the rest of you for joining us for this edition of Securing America. I hope you feel better equipped to help us do just that. For more information about how, I hope that you will visit us at our website, securingamerica.tv. It's a one stop shop on an awful lot of information that we produce, both for the radio program as well as our television show. And it's meant to equip you to, well, as I'm fond of saying, go forth and multiply. Till next time, this is Frank Gaffney. Thanks for watching.